President Trump traveled to Davos after my exclusive interview with him on Tuesday. And at the World Economic Forum, he met with other world leaders. He even came away with a framework for getting what he says the U.S. needs in Greenland and moves toward ending Russia's war on Ukraine. But also at Davos was California Governor Gavin Newsom. He crashed the party along with his good friend and Democratic mega donor Alex Soros. And Newsom didn't come empty-handed. He brought some Trump-branded knee pads. Watch.
I'm not kidding. They're the new Trump signature series knee pads. Yeah, and they are available online. I told you the last one sold out. And I just want to sort of... It's a serious moment. It actually, but we laugh. Anyway, these are available and in bulk, too.
Oh, did you know they're available online? Well, despite Newsom's insistence that this is a serious moment, it's not, and neither is he. What is serious is what's going on back in the state he's been elected to lead. Just more than a year ago, the Palisades and Eaton fires destroyed some 13,000 homes. And so far, fewer than 12 have been rebuilt. How does Newsom think Californians displaced by those fires, almost all of whom still don't have a home to go back to, feel about his trolling expedition? The answer is he doesn't think about Californians. As he showed again at Davos, he only is able to think about himself and maybe his hair gel. Gavin Newsom is more interested in stunts 5,000 miles away from his state capital than he is helping Californians rebuild. Instead of offering knee pads to world leaders, maybe Newsom should ask for some advice on regulation reform, something Trump knows a lot about. And maybe he thinks his antics will help him as his party's frontrunner in 2028. But one thing is for sure, Newsom's bizarre knee pads certainly did nothing to help California. But 6% mortgage rates in the Trump economy will. And while Gavin Newsom whines to Europeans, President Trump has a full plate of other countries demanding his attention. The U.S. is overseeing Venezuela, the president's Board of Peace is coming together to rebuild the Gaza Strip, and regime change in Cuba might be on the menu sooner rather than later. Is this all great news for America, or does this mean the country might be at risk of overextending itself? Joining me now to break it all down, Tyler Bowyer, Chief Operating Officer of Turning Point Action, wonderful organization, Democratic strategist Nomiki Konst, and Mark Halperin, the host of Two-Way Tonight. Thank you all for being here. So, Mark, you have some news that you just broke about what happened at Davos. Can you give us what went on behind the scenes?
Well, you know, VIPs like to VIP, so President and Gavin Newsom actually found themselves backstage in kind of a wide hallway area where the top VIPs at Davos were, and probably not a surprise to anybody who's ever enjoyed Donald Trump's hospitality. They kind of yucked it up back there. They joked around, there was a little towel snapping. The president brought Susie Wiles, his chief of staff, over, and light banter didn't last long, but breaking the story tonight that they did kind of run into each other, and game respects game. You know, they're both at the top of important governments in this country, and Newsom talked to Caroline Leavitt, talked to James Blair. Less friendly interaction, I'm told, with Stephen Miller, who was also back there. Probably not a surprise that Stephen didn't want to be chummy there.
Yeah, and the president got on Air Force One and sent out a Truth Social saying that Gavin Newsom has embarrassed himself trying to run around, trying to get attention at Davos. So they may have been cordial, but I don't think it really smoothed things over. Nomiki, speaking of Newsom's behavior, what is he doing in Davos? Is this all about his 2028 run? Shouldn't he be back at home when there are 13,000 people who don't have homes?
I mean, if you want to talk about 13,000 people who don't have homes, then ask Donald Trump why he cut FEMA funding and maybe go back to that.
Oh, no, listen, it's the federal government's fault.
Well, yes, he did cut significant funding, and that has a major impact on, you know, natural disasters. But that's a different story. Listen, he's doing what other Democrats are doing. Democrats need to show leadership in these moments. The international stage is incredibly important for the first time in many years. The population, the voting population, the population of the United States, and the global population is very concerned about international events. The entire makeup of this world, post-World War II era democracies and how these alliances work is at stake. So, of course, anybody who is on the Democratic side, and it's not just Gavin Newsom, there are plenty of Democrats who are there at Davos, as there are every year at Davos, by the way, they're there to make a statement. And, you know, we need leaders. I'm not a Gavin Newsom stan, but we do need leaders on the Democratic side who are willing to stand up to Trump, give an alternative message, and say, hey, Denmark, hey, NATO, you know, I know you guys don't want to deal with the United States right now, which is 100% true. But there are leaders here who, at least in the midterms, when we win back, you know, the House, you know, it's not like U.S. is off the table. Like in 8 months, we're back on the table.
Tyler, let me get you in here. I mean, I find that there's been a lot of hand-wringing and pearl-clutching about the Europeans who are still buying Russian gas, so Putin can still fund his war. And I think it's a really good thing that the president has pushed them to live up to their obligations and their contractual commitments that they have not for many years, which has weakened the NATO alliance. The president has reestablished American dominance on the world stage, and yet you have Europeans complaining that maybe they should be more of a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to watch Gavin Newsom travel to another country and then try to lobby the world against the United States. I mean, this is just this is what we're up against in 2028 is you have a pro-America party and you have an anti-America party. And it's no question that nobody wants to listen to Gavin Newsom in California. You know, it's probably why he's spending most of his time, you know, kind of prodding and poking fun at the rest of the world because they are, you know, actually wanting to work with the president and his successful policies that are actually moving the country forward here. And everybody's looking to America to help save the day. But I mean, this is what we're up against for the next 3 years is we're going to have basically a clown show traveling across the world and joining an international array that's working against American interests.
Well, not to mention Trump is not running again in 2028, so I'm not sure why Democrats are choosing to run against him instead of other Republicans who may throw their hats into the ring. Mark, turning back to Trump's global plans, there's a lot of them, you know, Venezuela, the Gaza Strip. We're also hearing from the Wall Street Journal that the U.S. is actively seeking regime change in Cuba this year. Is this part of the Don Roe doctrine? Is it feasible, or is the U.S. in charge of too many places at once?
Well, second-term presidents love to do foreign policy. You don't need 60 votes to get anything done. The president knows way more world leaders than he did before, and he gets the dynamics of it. So, like Reagan, like Clinton, like Bush 43, like Barack Obama, second-term presidents gravitate towards this. This president, as he is at home, is particularly active, and he also has a pretty good fingertip feel for how much he has to do to bring about the kind of changes he wants. So is he involved in a lot of stuff right now overseas? He is, but I don't get the sense from talking to people around him that he feels overextended about it because he knows how to do what he wants to do, at least so far, pretty efficiently.
Yeah, he has high approval ratings, actually, on foreign policy, especially inside the Republican Party. We got to run. Nomiki, Konst, Tyler Bowyer, Mark Halperin, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.